Hey friends, welcome back to the Finding Joy in Your Home podcast. I am your host, Jamie Balme, and I am very glad that you're joining me today. We are talking about building your home library. All right, this has been a very popular topic of mine. I've talked about this on Instagram. We do have a book list put together, but it's a book list for kids. We have not done an adult list yet, although I keep asking Jason to find some time to work on that, but he has been very, very busy. So we are going to put together an adult one, but we do have a kids book list that's just kind of a running list of our favorite books for kids. So if you go down below into the show notes, or if you're looking at this watching this on YouTube, you can find it down below. I've got a link there for you so you can find all of our favorite book series. But today we're talking about very intentionally building your library at home. So for some people, that's a real huge library with thousands of books. For other people, building a library just means being very curated with a single bookshelf. So you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to spend millions of dollars. In fact, we are very frugal with books. We buy books all kinds, secondhand, all the different tips. But we are very intentional with the books that we are bringing into our home, that we are having available for our kids, for ourselves. And you guys know that Jason and I are very big readers. We are hoping and praying to raise a house full of readers. It's still in progress. But having books available, having books here, having the access is what really helps. So the talk that we're going to listen to today is a talk that I did for my private mentorship, my homemaking mentor, where we talk about all things homemaking. And this last month I did this class on building your library. And the feedback was so great that when I talked about reading a couple of weeks ago, or last episode, I can't even remember now, a couple episodes ago, we talked about what I've been reading. I got tons and tons of questions on building your library, all of that. So instead of just re-recording, I'm going to go ahead and give you this masterclass because we get into it all. So we're going to go ahead and listen to that in just a second. I did have two quick announcements for you. The announcement number one is that we are opening up a new boot camp. Now, this is a totally different topic than reading. So if you're not interested, that's okay. Give me 30 seconds. So we have a brand new boot camp opening up that's going to start November 6th through 10th, and it is called Build Your Natural Medicine Cabinet Boot Camp. We are going to be meeting for 5 days. You get lifetime access to all the materials, so you don't have to follow us live. But each day, November 6th through 10th, we are going to be meeting to do a teaching time. We're going to be talking about how to use herbs, how to use essential oils, how to make tinctures and salves. And I'm giving you all of the training. So you're getting all of the training. What containers do you buy? What other ingredients do you need, like shea butter or beeswax? What do you need? What goes into all of this? All of this training over 5 days. What you also get, this is the fun part, is what you also get with it is you get a workbook that's got all that information in there from all the teaching. So basically like a handbook. I should call it a handbook. A handbook with all of that information in it and over 50 recipes. So we have recipes for sickness season coming up. We've got cough syrup and throat spray and immune boosting tinctures. We also have other ailments like earache oil. We've got boo-boo salve, calendula salve, burn salve, all of the different things. We also have a fun bonus. Day number 5 is going to be personal care items. So we do lotion and lip balm and bath scrub. Actually, the personal care section would be amazing for making presents for people for upcoming Christmas. And it is just, this is going to be one of my favorite things I've ever done. And the excitement around this is awesome. So if you go to findingjoyshop.com, right there at the top, you'll be able to find the information for this bootcamp, findingjoyshop.com. Registration is open right now. The earlier you buy, the more you're going to save on your registration. But head over to findingjoyshop.com. It's going to be amazing. And then if you're listening to this after the fact, you can still purchase it and you'll just get access to it. Okay. All right. My second quick announcement is that our Christmas bookstore opening is coming in November. It will be the 2nd to 3rd week of November. We will be collecting orders and shipping those all out probably right after Thanksgiving. So it'll be the first couple of weeks in December when you get your Christmas orders in time for Christmas. But we are going to have, it'll be our Christmas shop opening. So we've got a brand new cookbook that's coming as well as my other cookbooks. We've got our Sterling Spectacles children's book series. This will be your chance, plus a couple other fun surprises we have up our sleeves. So this will be your chance to get all of our stuff in print. So follow along. That will be coming sometime in November, and I will hopefully have dates on that very soon. All right, so I'm going to be done talking your ear off. I'm going to turn you guys over to this masterclass so that we can dig right into what it means to build your own library. Hey ladies, welcome back to month number 2 of the Productive Household 12-month course. This month we're tackling personal development. Now that's kind of sounds like a boring title, but I could not think of a better thing to call it. So personal development / this is actually going to be a really fun topic that we're going to dive into. So I have got some bone broth hot chocolate here, which again, that doesn't sound very good. This is really good. And this is my snack for the afternoon to get me through till dinner while I'm recording. Recording videos takes a ton of energy. So I've got my little hot chocolate here that I'll be drinking while we're chatting. So we are tackling personal development. We're tackling some really fun topics within this. Today's lesson, we're going to be talking about building your library, why you want to do that, some different areas to think through. We're going to be talking about a mother's education or mother culture. It does not specifically for mothers. Any women are going to benefit greatly from that. We are going to be talking about personal fitness and teaching your kids personal fitness as well. And then lastly, this month, we're going to wrap up this super practical month with women's hormones and caring for your own health. That'll probably be the longest lesson out of them all. But I'm recording all of these right now this afternoon, so I'm going to try to move my way through these. So today we're tackling a very important topic of building up your own library and why this is important for your home. Now, we're all going to have different goals when it comes to building up a library within your home. We have different space requirements, and quite frankly, we have different interest levels. So for those of you who've been following for a while, you know that Jason and I are reading fanatics. We love reading. We've always loved reading. We're huge readers. And our personal home decor style is that you decorate with bookshelves. So in our room alone, this is a little corner of our bedroom here where I shoot. We've got this big old huge bookshelf over to the side. Our nightstands are both filled with books. We've got tons of books tucked away in the closet, in the garage. And then we have got a couple of bookshelves in the living room, bookshelves in the kids' rooms. We just kind of find places to put them. But books are very important to us for our family culture. And we are in a fairly small house for a family of 9 right now. When we just moved from California, moving here, getting settled in Oklahoma. So we don't have all the books out that we want. I want wall-to-wall bookshelves. Okay. Not everybody's quite as obsessed with books and bookshelves and we want a real library within your home. So you don't have to be quite that level. However, I think there are some really important things to think through in building up your own library, whether that's one bookshelf, one shelf. What does the library look like in your home? So we have got a few different areas we're going to address under this umbrella. So the first thing is, why do we want to focus on this? And why are we talking about this in a productive household course? How does building up our library help us? There's a few things. The first thing is, I personally think that we have become too reliant on the internet for resources, which might not always be so accessible. Blogs get taken down, blogs get moved. You can no longer find or access those resources. And we have just come to rely on, pulling up our recipes. So for a really long time, there was this, the laundry detergent and dishwasher detergent recipes that I had found ones online, and I'd kind of merged 2 together and kind of made up my own recipe. But every time I went to make it, I had to go find both of those sources, pull them up, remind myself what I had done. Just an absolute waste of time. Another time where this became important was there was a recipe that I used to pull all the time from Bread Beckers. So breadbeckers.com, they're a fantastic resource for learning how to bake bread. I've learned so much stuff from them over the years. And their bread machine recipe was my go-to for years. And I just always would Google Bread Beckers, Zerushi, and then it would come up with a recipe. And that's how I made it every single time. Well, they had a couple of weeks I don't know, a year or two ago, maybe longer, where their website went like completely down. Their website crashed. They have a very, very old website. Their website completely crashed and I couldn't access those recipes. And it made me realize that especially when there's recipes that you rely on, when there's resources, when there's tutorials, where there's things that you're going to look up often online, that what happens when that blog gets taken down or that website crashes or you just don't have access or the power is out or the internet is out? There's so many things that can affect this. And we just get so used to having the internet at our fingertips. I also think, like I was saying, it can be a waste of time. How many times have you like reached for your phone to look up a recipe and you get sidetracked and you ended up down the Pinterest rabbit hole or somehow you're on Instagram and 20 minutes later. So for me, I think there's a very good reason for getting things off of digital and in front of you. Now, the other thing is, as we're talking about building up a library, which we're going to talk about in all kinds of areas, kids' books, cookbooks, resources, all of that. But I know some of you are like digital queens. And so you have got you've got Evernote or you've got Trello and you've got all these online ways that you're categorizing, cataloging all the online things. That's wonderful. So that is your online resource. I do think it's wise to have certain things in paper copy, but oh, my light just went out. Hopefully it's not too dark in here. I wonder why my light went out. Okay, we're just gonna roll with it. I hope it doesn't look terrible, but Jason just left with the little kids to go pick up milk from the farm we get our milk from. So I would have to mess with it and play with it and do it all myself. So we're just gonna roll with it, okay? I think you can still see me. That's just probably terrible lighting now. Okay, so however you want to, however you want to do it. Not everybody likes to print stuff out. Not everybody wants a bunch of physical paper resources. And I totally get that space is limited. Jason and we would rather get rid of other things and make room for books. But not everybody has that same priority. So whatever that looks like for your family, I just want you to really think through this critically. Okay, so that's number one, is all these online resources, all these recipes, these things that we often reach for, they just might not always be there and they might not be easy to find and get all of those issues that you can have. The second thing is that when we are thinking about having resources in our home, having books within our home, we really want to be able to lay out the feast, as Charlotte Mason says, lay out the feast of books, of resources that we have for our kids, and for ourselves. So Charlotte Mason says we should lay out the feast for our kids with good books and resources and let them like nibble on little things here and there. Try reading a comic book. Try reading historical fiction. Lay out the feast so that these resources are available, and then let your kids dabble and experiment and try the different things that they like. And I think we should be doing this as well, in addition to just our kids doing this. We should be reading broadly. We should be looking at different resources. We're going to talk about that in the next lesson when we talk about investing in ourselves. But we want to have physical resources. We want to have books on a shelf that, our kids have to read at minimum an hour per day. And so there are days where they're totally hooked into a book and they're fine and they're reading and they pick up their book. And there's other days, just yesterday, one of my sons was like, there's nothing good to read in this whole house, which of course is ridiculous. And so we walked over to the kids' bookshelf that has all their chapter book series. And I said, how about this one? And just having that availability right there is one of the things that we want to have. We want to have a lot of different resources. Now, we still do utilize the library. We don't have a big budget. I buy books on clearance. We'll talk about all that. I am buying books in a very limited budget, and yet you still can make that work with limited space, limited time. What we also do is we'll have bins of books, boxes of books in the garage, and every so often I will come in and go through them and swap out books. You can get really, really creative, and having a library in your home doesn't have to be this big, huge thing. Okay, so those are just a couple of reasons. I think we'll talk in the next lesson, we'll talk a little bit more about some of those reasons as well. But first thing I want to talk about is building up our kids' libraries. This is something that Jason and I have been focusing a lot on this year. So we've always loved books, but when we lived in California, our kids were a lot younger because it's been like 3.5 years now since we lived in California. So our oldest were 7. Yeah, that's crazy. So our oldest were 7 when we started traveling. And That was our oldest. So they were just barely getting into bigger books. And so we had picture books in California, but we didn't have the books that we do now for children. And so then we were traveling for 2 years in our RV around the United States, and we were extremely limited on book space. And so what we would actually do is throughout the year when we would buy books, because we couldn't really utilize libraries very well either. There was a couple places that we could, but for the most part we couldn't. And so we were buying books throughout the year or throughout 6 months. And every time we'd make it back to California, which we did pretty often, about every 6 months, we would open up our storage unit in California and fill a box and put it in there of all those books that we had read throughout the year. But still, our space was really, really limited. And so now getting here, getting settled, living in a home again, having actually what feels like a ton of space, 1,500 square feet is not super big for 9 people, but it feels like so much space compared to the RV. We're like, fill every corner with books. Our kids are all so much older. Like Magnolia, baby number 5, is going to turn 7 in January. So our kids are all so much older, and all 5 of the older kids are just tearing through chapter books. So this year we really got serious about not just checking out books from the library, but we will often use the library as exploration. Like we will check out books. I will read them. Jason will read them, where you were very involved in that way. I know a lot of people personally just won't use the library at all. We do. We utilize the library. We're just very, very protective. We don't let our kids go loose and go pick anything you want. I also think it really helps that we live in Oklahoma, in one of the most conservative states in the nation. So I'm sure California libraries, I'm sure there are some libraries you probably just don't even want to go into, although you could do pickup and all that. So anyway, as we've been very intentional this year of trying to find a few of those chapter book series, especially because in my kids' ages, a lot of the chapter books they're reading are, of course, the more simple ones. They're really short. They can get through them actually pretty fast. So they're just devouring books. So we realized we really want to have so many of these series that we absolutely love on hand for them to be able to just pick up and go through. And we do have 5 children because our older kids are all 4 years apart in age, like total from the 1st to the 5th. They're only 4 years apart in age. They're overlapping so much in books right now. So I think for us, that's why also it feels like we need to have so much on hand, because there's 5 of them trying to go through different series. So that's been a big motivator for really wanting to build up our library for the kids. And our favorites that we like to keep on hand are classic books and series. We love series. The books that have a lot of kids series will have 19, 20, 30 books in the series. Those are our favorite. Okay, so we get asked all the time what books our kids like. So I have started a master resource list, and I included all of our favorite books for kids. I'm sure I'm missing some, but I went through our bookshelf. I went through all of those series and really started cataloging all of those. So I have down below, I have a link for you where you can find my favorite resources. So make sure that you go check that out if you're looking for kids books. So like I said, I am all for utilizing the library, swapping books with friends. I think there's ways that you can get really, really creative with this. You don't have to have this big library in your home, but I also think that you can slowly build up a home library in a very sustainable way by shopping sales, by shopping thrift stores. You can do it easily. Like I never, ever buy books new. The only exception is every once in a while, Costco carries really good book sets. And every once in a while, they'll offer something that's like such a killer price that you're like, okay, yes. Or so like we did that Little House on the Prairie. We bought the Little House on the Prairie set, even though I absolutely could have found those used. We bought that set at Costco several years ago because it was such like $20 for the whole set, something crazy. It was like such a good price. And so we bought the set because then we have all the matching books, which is what I would prefer. But with a lot of these series, it's not going to happen. So Redwall, if you guys don't know Redwall is an absolutely amazing, amazing series. I read it as a kid and now my kids are really getting into it. And a Redwall, I don't know, there's 17, 22 books, something like that. And I've just been collecting them and finding them when I can at thrift stores. So our Redwall set does not match. It's all different editions and that's totally fine. So for me, I'd rather have a much more usable, workable library than something that's necessarily like the most beautiful. We're not necessarily buying the most beautiful editions all the time. I do think there's times and places for that, but there's not always the budget for that, right? Okay, so some of my favorite places. So Costco, we will get some of their book sets sometimes. Those work really well for presents. Christmas is coming up. For Christmas, each of our children will be getting a new book series. And then my oldest twin's birthday is the day after Christmas. And on their birthday, they will both each be getting a new book series as well. We gift a lot of books around here. All right, so thrift books. Thrift books is my number one place. This is my number one go-to where I always look first. So I do have a referral link. If you've never ordered from thrift books before, scroll down and get my referral link because you can sign up for a free account. And then if you sign up for their reading rewards program, which is totally free. And if you do a $30 order, you will get then a free book. So that's really nice because I end up getting free books often with thrift books because I don't even know what the rewards program is. I don't pay much attention to it, but like every couple of orders, I just have like a free book that I get to add to my cart because the rewards add up. So and thrift books they have such a huge selection. You're going to find such good prices for being able to order them online. They don't always have everything, but you also can sign up. Like if there's a book that they just don't have in stock, you can put your email address in and it'll notify you when that book comes available. My second favorite place is like a used bookstore locally. So I will shop Goodwill, Salvation Army, but they're usually much more limited in the books that they have. And so I will browse those, but they're absolutely hit or miss. But every time I'm in a thrift store, I will look through the book section. And then we have here in Oklahoma City, we have half price books. If you have a half price books near you, check them out. They have really, really good prices that are pretty competitive with thrift books, but you can, of course, just pick them up in the store. But what thrift books has also is a really big clearance section. So it's very hit or miss, but every time I go in, I beeline straight for the clearance section. I have my whole list of all the book series that we're looking for our children, and I have found very random ones before. We knew we wanted to get the series of Unfortunate Events. And I was in there once and they had books 7 and 9 for $1. I don't have any of the other books in that series, but I bought those two. And I have a list. We can talk about that. So half price books. What's the other one that we used to go to in Pennsylvania? There's another one. Books A Million. I don't actually know much about that one. Is that one a used bookstore? No, I'm forgetting. But there's another one that I can't remember. Anyway, half price books is my favorite, but maybe that's one we went to in Pennsylvania. Anyway, there's another big chain that I can't think of, but some stores like that. If you have used bookstores, if you've got in California, in our area, we actually had a lot of used books. Another great one is abebooks.com. It's another great place for used books. I personally just feel like I always have more success with thrift books. So that one's my go-to, but I will check Abe as well. And often when I'm doing an order, I will try to do enough of an order. Like I don't order from thrift books all the time. So when I do an order, I try to do a big enough order that I'm getting free shipping, which I don't remember what the amount is, $35, something like that. And so sometimes there might be one book that's $1 cheaper on Abe Books, but I will just end up doing them all in thrift books because it ends up, working out better. So you kind of just want to play with the online systems. My new secret that I have found this year, eBay, of course, can be a great source for finding whole series, so or individual books. So if you're like, I want to get all of the Kingdom of Renly's, there's someone out there that's selling the entire series. Now, I actually think a lot of times for a big series like that, you're going to end up spending more than even necessarily Amazon's price. Like you'll see the series sometimes for $140, which maybe for the books is a good deal, but I just find that a more expensive route, which of course it's easier. You just hit a button. So there is like, if you're looking for Christmas gifts, you want to buy a whole series, you don't want to go through all the crazy work that Jamie does, shopping in all these different places, then eBay can be great. Just type in the book series you're looking for and, you can really find some good stuff. But what I have found, this is my new secret, this is my absolute go-to right now for ordering books. There for kids books. There's a bookseller on eBay called Second Sale, and I'll put a link down below for them. So this Second Sale, they're this huge eBay store. So what they do is they offer, I think it's all the time, because I've been ordering from them for like 6 months and they just always have it, is that if you, for all of their books that are $5 or under, so most of them are going to end up being kids books, but they've got a lot of fiction and other books and stuff there too. Any of their books that are $5 and under, you buy 3 books, you get 1 free. So a lot of these books are going to run $3 to $4, and then you're going to get the 4th book for free. And a lot of these kids books are going to run $7.99 or $8.99 on Amazon. So you're getting them already for $3 or $4, then you're going to get that 4th one for free. I have gotten so many books from their shop, they have they have everything. They have everything. So one of our series this year we were completing, which we did complete, is the Kingdom of Renly books. Actually, the book 20 comes out this month in October. And so that was one series that I really wanted to complete, but I was doing it on a major budget. And so I completed the whole rest of the series of the ones that we needed from this eBay shop, because for every 3 books I bought, I got 1 free. And in like one little order, I was able to complete the series. So you can find all kinds of book deals on there. So get creative, and it can take a little bit of elbow grease sometimes. But for the amount of books that we are looking for, wanting to build our library of, it's worth the extra work for me. But there are some easier things that you can do. Check Costco, see if you have a half price books in your area, some things like that. All right, so how I keep track then of our kids' library is that I have a note on my phone. We use an app called, or it's like a website and an app called Notion. I don't know if they have a free account, but Notion is what we use to run all of our business stuff. So it's basically like our project management system for our business. And in that, we have like a household tab where Jason and I put in all of our household things as well. So you could do this with like a Trello board or Evernote, or even just a note on your phone. And we have one that's called Balmain Library. And in that, we have a running list of all of our books. So categorized by series. So you'll see Kingdom of Renly, and it has a little toggle so that when you click on it, all the books pop up, and all the books are written with check marks next to the ones that we have. And then if I've completed the series, then I will highlight it in green, and I know that that series is completed and I don't need to think about it. So we've got Little House on the Prairie. We've got all the books checked. It's green. That kind of thing. But then what we do is like series of unfortunate events. When I found books 7 and 9 for $1, I picked up my phone, I put a series of unfortunate events, made a new pop down, populated all the books, and then check marked books 7 and 9. And then the thing is, I was at a consignment store. So that was like, 6 months ago. So then I was at a consignment store the other day or a consignment sale, and they had books like 2, 3, 4, and 7. And so I was able absolutely to just pull up my thing and go, oh, good, I need those 3. I already have 7. Otherwise, there's no way that I would have remembered. And in the past, I have accidentally double bought copies of something thinking, oh, I don't have that one. I think I don't have any in that series, or I just misremember. And so this allows me now, I think we're only missing 2 books in the series of a series of unfortunate events, which a 9-book series can be really, really, really expensive. And I've spent a couple of dollars on them. And so that's how I keep track of it. You can also do that with your library at home. Kids books, I tend to forget more because these series can be so long and there's so many of them. And so I'm just always keeping my eye out. There's certain books that like this year I was like, I want to complete Kingdom of Renly. The 3 younger children, the 3 middle children are all reading through that series right now. We keep checking them out from the library. I want to just own that series. So I was very like, this one's going to get complete. Most of the time though, I just have a whole bunch of series that I'm looking out for. And when I find the random book at Goodwill, then I get it. And that's what helps really well to be able to build this on much more of a budget when we are buying a lot of books and really intentionally building up our library at this point. So that really helps a lot with keeping it cheap. But again, I know that we're doing a bit more of an advanced resource library or kids library than maybe a lot of people want to. Okay, so done with kids book. My next recommendation is talking about building a resource library. Now, I think this is for kids as well as adults, but we really want to build a very practical resource library in our home for books that are going to benefit our household, books that I can grab and use for our household, but also books that the kids can pick up and learn. So we're building up a lot of homesteading type of, or just self-sufficiency, building books, all kinds of books like that. So yesterday we were having kind of some like project time in the afternoon. One of my sons was taking a coding class. Another kid was working on like this drawing book. And one of my sons was like, Mom, I have nothing to work on. I'm bored. And so I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to learn about? Let's do some Googling. Let's find some videos for you to watch. What do you want? And he's like, well, yeah. So we were reading through some lists and I'm like, well, what about, this kid is going to be a farmer when he grows up. So he's like, yeah, something on farming would be cool. So one of the things we've talked heavily about jumping into soon are meat rabbits. So he watched this whole video on meat rabbits, which we've done research, but he watched it himself and he was supposed to take notes and report back to me. So he was doing this and he was getting all into it and he was all excited and he was telling me all these things. And he's like, Mom, can I watch another one? And I said, yes, but I've got something better. So I went over to my resource library and I pulled a book that I already have on raising meat rabbits. And his look of delight that I had this book he was so excited. So he carried it around with him. It's now in his room. I've seen it move to a few different places. So I think he's kind of taken it with him. And I just think that is so awesome. You're not always going to have the exact book on what they're learning, but that's why I like having books on hand. Of course, you can also utilize the library for a lot of these things as well. Okay, so for our personal resource library, here are the different areas that I think through in building up a good resource library. So first of all is kind of what we've been talking about, practical and hands-on books. So books on building a natural medicine cabinet, herbs, gardening, all of these different things I really, really like to have on hand. So I had a friend who stopped by a couple of weeks ago. Her parents do like a big garden every year and they planted like way more peppers than they normally do or something. And so they had like peppers coming out of their ears. So she was like, but her parents were like, here, you can have all the peppers. So she's like, I got to figure out how to process all these. So she came over to borrow my dehydrator and she picked it up and she was asking me questions. She's never done dehydrating. And she's asking about the pepper. And I'm like, I just can't remember. So I pulled my dehydrating cookbook off the shelf. We flipped it open. She took a picture of it. We had all of the stuff right there. Of course you can go to Google, but it wasn't as fast. It wouldn't have been as direct and you wouldn't have necessarily gotten the expert help as just flipping something open right there. So that to me, I'm very intentional about building up this resource library of all of these different things that we have. And of course, this is good for us adults. This is what I'm pulling from and learning from all the time, but it's also fantastic to have on hand for kids to be able to go through, especially now as my kids are entering middle school ages and above. We're right around there. There's more stuff that I can just hand them and say, hey, why don't you figure this out on your own? All right. Number 2 is cookbooks. Okay. Do you have actual cookbooks? Do you have printed recipes? Or is everything online? And I love building up my cookbook library. I'm a cookbook fanatic. Now, of course, since I have published my own cookbooks, I really could write off any cookbooks that I order online as business expenses for like research. So there's just more excuses to buy way more cookbooks. No, I am very particular. I don't just buy any and all cookbooks. I am very particular about making sure the cookbooks in my library are ones that I want to use and that are actually really handy. But I love having cookbooks for like everyday recipes. But what I really love is for those unusual things. So cookbooks on making kombucha, for making cheese. I've got a book on my wish list for making my own tea blends. I've got books on canning, dehydrating, really specialty things that are going to be an end-all be-all resource right there in one book for you, I think are fantastic. And so if there's something you really, really want to learn, I think get a book on it and read through it. Like there's no better way to like figure something out and master it, or at least figure out the beginnings. Because once you figure out the lingo and what you're even talking about, once you like have read through a book on making cheese, you're gonna understand the process so much more. Even if you haven't done it yet and maybe don't fully know it, you can then take that knowledge and look up a cheese making video and you're gonna be like, oh, I totally understand what they're doing. So that's what I recommend as a reader. Now, I love checking these kinds of books out from the library whenever I can. And I think this is a great way. I mean, there's so many books I've gotten from the library. When I first got into quilting, I checked out like 20 books on quilting from the library. I know way too much about quilting for my skill level. I know all these things and I don't know necessarily how to do it, but I'm putting it into practice. But I didn't need to own any of those quilting books. I would like to own a few really good quilting books in the future. That's what I should ask for Christmas. But I got a bunch of books out and I was able to weed out which ones were amazing and which ones weren't. And so I actually took a picture of 2 of them that was like, oh, I'd love to own this as a really good resource one day. So getting things from the library is a great way to test them out. So see if your library has those cookbooks that you're interested in. See if you really love it or if it's just kind of all right. And I photocopied a page or 2 out of library books when there's something so good that I want to keep. Like if there's some great tutorial, some great recipe, then I'll just photocopy it and put it in my personal recipe binder. You can do the same thing with Pinterest tutorials, recipes. Print out the amazing ones and start building your own DIY medicine cabinet, your own cookbook, your own canning recipe book, something to where you have got the stuff in front of you. If you prefer to categorize that all digitally, that's fine, because that's still going to be better than like randomly trying to hunt down all these different places that could be taken down. And I really don't think you need to spend a lot of money to start building up a solid library for yourself. All of these things we talked about, you can do much cheaper. One tip for cookbooks, for these really good like resource books, which definitely can be more expensive. I don't think that you just stumble upon these at Goodwill as often. Although a really good like half price books or thrift books, those are good places to look, but you're just not going to find the same deals online usually because everybody else is looking for these as well. So what I do though is a couple of times a year, Amazon will do their like buy 2, get 1 free sale. And it's not like on everything in Amazon, but they will have a select few things, like a bunch of things. And I will go through, whenever they have those sales, I will go through every resource or cookbook that I want. And I will just type it in and see if it's part of the sale. And I have gotten so many fantastic resources over the years. And when you're buying like a $30 to $40 book and you can buy 2 of those and get a whole third one for free, that's a really good price. That's a really, really good price. You're getting a really good discount. And so pretty much for Christmas and birthday, these are what I ask for. I'm really boring. This is what I ask for, is these types of books. And this is really how, for Mother's Day, that's what I ask for. And so getting like a stack, if it would not be Christmas if I didn't get a stack of new books, like it's all I want. That's what I want. And so I have already probably way too many. One of my sons, we're doing this like Secret Santa thing where Jason and I are involved in it too. And just with our whole family. And one of my sons has me, and I know because I was the one running it, and I was like, it's okay. I'm just going to know who has me. And he was like, okay. And so he was looking on my gift wish list and he goes, but Mom, you only have books on here and you have a lot of books. I was like, yes, son, that is what I want. And he was like, oh, okay. It was very cute. Anyway, so yeah, books and more books. All right, my next category of books to be very intentional about bringing into your home are good Christian books, good theology books. This is a very huge part of our library that we have been building for years. Our huge bookshelf you can't see right here on this wall of our bedroom. This is where our Christian books are. The best ones anyway, or the ones that we're currently reading through. We have a lot in the garage as well. But this is where we have our different commentaries and systematic theologies, and just lots of great books here. And we really want solid, terrific Christian resources that we can read, that our kids can start reading, that we can lend out to others. We let people borrow books from our library a lot. And for Jason and I, as we're thinking through building up our home library, it's not just for us for today, for right now, but we also want to build up this library for future generations. And with libraries becoming less reliable, with books being canceled and banned, with less good literature being produced, and so much more being moved online and digital, we want a physical library that can grow with us throughout the years. And I also think publishers are not publishing really good theological content anymore. I was working with an agent for a while, tossing around this idea of a book, basically just, basically finding joy in your home. encouragement for when you're burnt out and overwhelmed, but very solidly from a Christian standpoint. And I was pitching to Christian publishing houses. I was working with a Christian agent. And on my first round with my book, the first big negative comment that I had was like the first thing that everybody came back with was it's too Christian. So if you leave it Christian, you can mention a few things, but it's too Christian. So if you could tone that down, we'd be interested in buying it. And in fact, that was the thing that my agent said. It's too Christian. And it just gives you, and that's the Christian publishing world right now, which is why we publish our own stuff. But it just shows you that a lot of these really amazing resources, some of them just could be hard to find in the future. So we want resources at our fingertips that we can browse, that we can learn from, that we can lend out to others. And we personally dream of having a huge library in the future that our kids can like come borrow from for their kids. We want a future house to be 5,000 square feet and just covered wall to wall in bookshelves. Wouldn't that be amazing? You just like walk from room to room. So cool. Anyway, but we do dream, we just want this big library, whether we have a little tiny space or a big space, we just want lots of stuff. So we want to slowly cultivate these amazing resources over a lifetime. And so that means being very intentional about the resources we bring into our home, and how we make them available to our kids and to ourselves. And I'm going to wrap up here with this quote. I read this quote recently, and they were talking about like in a professional setting, but I thought this was really interesting. The quote says, reading an hour a day is only 4% of your day, but that 4% will put you at the top of your field within 10 years. And the thing is, people do not read anymore. People are not reading. They're passively consuming content. They're playing games on their phone all day long, zoning out on TikTok. People are not growing their brains. We're going to talk about in the next lesson. People are not investing in their own growth, in their own learning. And even, I just thought that was a really interesting statistic, because as moms, as women, it can be really tough to find the time to read ourselves. We can encourage our kids to read, but are we reading? And yet reading an hour a day is only 4% of your day. So are you spending an hour of your day on social media right now? You could replace just 15, 20 minutes of that, 30 minutes of that with reading. And it's going to go a very, very, very long way. So that's what I'm going to leave you on. I just want to encourage you on that. And in the next episode or lesson, we will be talking about growth. How do we invest in ourselves? Why do we need to be growing? So once you're done with this, next week, we'll be able to jump into that lesson number 2. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I had so much fun chatting with you about building up your library. Don't forget to head down below. You can find the link to take you over to where we have our children's books, that we've got just a page where we've just got everything listed for you with links. And also a couple of announcements. We have got our Build Your Natural Medicine Cabinet Bootcamp that is going live November 6th. Come and register over at findingjoyshop.com. We also have our Christmas store opening that will be coming sometime in the middle of November, 2nd to 3rd week of November. I need to look at Thanksgiving dates. I got to get my November planned out, but it's going to be sometime in the next few weeks. So make sure you pay attention to that. And if you are loving this podcast, you want to follow along all the different things we do here on YouTube, go ahead and head down and hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share what you are doing for building up your library, share all of your library favorites. I would love to hear what you are doing. And in fact, I can add that to our resources too. I love when people share book series recommendations. Let us know what you're reading, what you're loving. Comment down below, and we'll see you guys back here next week for the next episode.